So let's talk about how we learn. Today, we're looking at two really powerful blueprints for building knowledge. One is the modern scientific model you probably recognize, but the other, it's a really deep, ancient method from Indian philosophy. And believe me, you're going to be surprised at how much they actually have in common. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend hours, maybe in a lecture or a meeting, and you feel like you're taking it all in, but then, poof, it's gone. So why is that? Well, it turns out that how we learn is every bit as important as what we learn. And today, we're going to explore two very different, yet kind of similar, ways to make knowledge actually stick. All right, first step, let's start with the familiar stuff, the modern scientific model. For more than a century now, psychologists have been digging into our brains, trying to map out the mechanics of exactly how we process and hold on to information. When you boil it all down, it's basically a three-step process. First, you've got encoding. That's when you first see or hear something, and your brain turns it into a thought. Then comes storage, where your brain works to file that information away and make it stable. And finally, you have retrieval, which is, being able to pull that knowledge back out when you actually need it. So the main thing to get here is that this model gives us a universal framework. It's all based on data and experiments explaining how we learn pretty much everything, whether it's a new language or some complex idea in physics. It's all about the how. Okay, so now let's switch gears and jump way back in time. We're leaving the modern lab and heading into the ancient philosophical traditions of India, where they developed their own incredibly sophisticated system for achieving true deep understanding. In the Vedantic school of thought, learning isn't just about collecting facts to win a trivia night. Nope, it's seen as a transformative journey. It's a whole process laid out in three very clear stages, and it's designed to turn simple information into real, profound wisdom. So the whole journey kicks off with something called Śravaṇa. Now, this is way more than just hearing words. It's deep, focused, disciplined listening. It's that initial intake of knowledge, usually from a teacher or a really important text. You can think of it as planting the seed of understanding. After you've listened, you move on to Manana. This is the active part. It's where you really wrestle with the material. You question it, you debate it in your head, you analyze it from all angles to connect the dots. The whole point here is to clear up any doubts and build a rock-solid, logical foundation for what you've learned. And then, finally, the whole process leads to Nidhidyasana. This is the deepest stage of all. This is where intellectual head knowledge gets transformed into lived experience, usually through practices like meditation. It's about embodying the knowledge so completely that it just becomes a part of you. Okay, so we've got these two systems from two totally different worlds, right? One from a science lab, the other from ancient philosophy. You'd think they'd be miles apart, but this is where things get really fascinating. When you put them side by side, wow, the parallels are just impossible to ignore. Just look at this. Shravana, that active focused listening, is a dead ringer for what psychologists call encoding. And Manana, that stage of reflection and analysis, it's basically the same idea as the brain's consolidation or storage phase, where knowledge gets stabilized. And then you have Nididhyāsana, that deep, lived assimilation. Well, that's the ultimate goal, right? To make knowledge so much a part of you that its retrieval becomes effortless. And this quote just nails it. Thousands of years apart, coming from completely different angles, both of these traditions figured out the same fundamental truth. Real learning isn't just one thing. It's a journey, a process that goes from first contact to mental processing, all the way to deep personal internalization. But here's the twist. While the processes look almost identical, the purpose behind them is fundamentally different. And honestly, understanding this difference is the key to unlocking the real power of both frameworks. This table really breaks it down. Look, modern psychology's goal is scientific. It wants to explain and predict how memory works using experiments and observable data. But Indian philosophy? Its goal is way more personal and transformational. It's aiming for spiritual liberation, for self-realization, using tools like introspection and meditation. The scope isn't just bigger, it's playing in a completely different ballpark. Here's the bottom line. Psychology gives us a brilliant map of the mind's machinery. Philosophy gives us a guide for a journey of personal transformation. One describes what's happening, the other prescribes a path forward. So, what does this all mean for you and me? Well, the real magic happens when we take the best of both worlds. We can use the practical, ancient structure and merge it with what we now know about the brain to become much more effective, well-rounded learners. So try thinking about your own learning like this. First, focus on getting high-quality input. That's your Shravana. Don't just let information wash over you. Actively listen. Then you have to make time for processing. That's your Manana. Question what you've learned. Argue with it. Write about it. And finally, look for that integration, your Nididhyāsana. How can you apply this knowledge? Can you teach it to someone? How does it connect to your actual life? And why bother with all this? Well, this integrated approach does way more than just help you remember facts for a test. It builds a bridge between logic and real, lived experience. It helps you enhance long-term memory, and it fosters this beautiful balance between knowing about the world out there and knowing yourself in here. It really turns learning into a path for personal growth. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. By combining these two incredible blueprints, we can totally reimagine what it even means to learn. It stops being just about downloading information and starts becoming an engine for real transformation. The ultimate question then isn't just what you know, it's about who that knowledge helps you become.